Please enjoy this message from David Arquette sent in by the fabulous Carrie Tenney.
Hey Ryan, how are you? Thanks for doing the Scream podcast.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Curly, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I couldn't be more grateful for everybody out there who listens to the show, who supports my podcast here, listening every episode, or on social media on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. If you would like to become a member of the podcast, come to the group Zooms, be on the show on a one-on-one or small group setting, consider joining the Patreon with Scream with Ryan C. Showers. In addition to the benefits of coming on the podcast, you can also join our social media groups, in particular on Instagram. That's the main hub of the podcast. I also do a monthly audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. From now through April, we are going to be having a new Scream movie audio commentary. So if you would like to hear my thoughts in an audio commentary form in the style of Wes Craven, Marion Maddalena, et al. Of the original trilogy, please consider subscribing and supporting the show. Thank you to every single person out there who subscribes on Patreon. So I need to thank TJ Jones, who does all of the graphic design work for the podcast, and Ashley Summers, who helps me produce the show every week. In addition, I need to thank everybody over at Patreon, including the Stab Investors and Daddy Ghostfaces. The Daddy/Mama Ghostfaces, they include Carrie Tenney, Corey Wilson, Andrew Dominguez, and Brett Janovich. I also need to thank all of my Stab investors. They include Mark Harim, Josh Carr, Allie, Tamika Jones, Christian Ranke, David D., Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nabrini, aka The Vault, John Cardney, Josh Camillari, Scream Queens Podcast, both Josh and Justine, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PW05, aka Philip Douglas, Roy Garza from the Hoodie Talks podcast, Ryan Not Dying Young, Ivan Valance, Sam Levy, and Stevie Shears. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Today is April 15th, and that is a very special date. All of us know what that is. That is the release date of Scream 4 back in 2011, and it's been such a fun ride over the past couple of days, couple of weeks to relive Scream 4, especially the remastered version without the filter. And my sister and I, we watched Scream 4 yesterday. It was just so, it was honestly one of my favorite times I've ever watched Scream 4 in these last 15 years. Everything just clicked so well for me. The movie has such a big statement, so many big things to say in its themes. And not just like the Jill influencer thing. Sometimes I think that's the people and the commentary in pop culture about Scream 4 going right to the TikTok thing is redundant, rather than looking at the generational rot of Scream 4 and what Wes was saying, comparing the generations, and in addition to the meta aspect, the allegory of the remake versus the original. So, but it dawned on me like, oh my God, I have lived half of my life with Scream 4. I'm 30, and the movie came out 15 years ago. That means I've lived with Scream 4. It's been a part of my life for literally half of my life, 15 years. That is crazy when you think about it that way. So, the bonds with Scream 4 go deep. And honestly, I have never felt so passionate about it as I do today. It's like I said in episodes recently, like it is the movie that I've grown to love the most. So, but that's a little tribute to Scream 4 on its anniversary. Cheers to Scream 4. Okay. So, next, let's move on now to the main crux of the episode, which is I titled this episode Scream 7, the best modern Scream movie. And by modern, I mean Spyglass, Paramount, not Scream 4. Scream 4 came out 15 years ago. Not so modern, okay? The modern Scream movies, aka Scream 5, Scream 6, Scream 7. And, this was something I wanted to ask people, and it's kind of a tall order to ask people. Let's just remember the context here. So the context is that this movie came out despite a political boycott that was tied into the issue of Israel and Palestine, unfairly, unjustly, in my opinion. And it came out and it was review bombed by critics and has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, yet, 76, 77, 78 audience score. It was the highest grossing film in the franchise. If you talk to people, normal everyday people, you'll hear a lot of really great things. The movie has made, at this point, going on 220 million, by far and away the most successful Scream movie of all time, led by Nev Campbell, by the way. So don't fuck with the original. Gosh, I just lagged down the Scream 4-ism of it all right now. This phrase, the best modern Scream movie, this actually came from my friend who is the guy who runs the YouTube channel Beyond the Mask. His name's Nate. Nate messaged me as I was going into the theater to see Scream 7 the day before it came out. I was going in as he was coming out, and he texted me and he just said, "Ryan, this is the best modern Scream movie." And that phrase really hit me, because I think that a lot of people, and you hear it. I mean, I don't think you hear it on this show. People's frustration with the Radio Silence films, even if people like 5 and 6, or really like 5 or 6, either or both, there is an element where Scream 7 stands apart from that. Scream 7 returns to what the franchise was with 1, 2, and 3, and then 4. Because for a lot of us, the original 3 and 4, that is home as it pertains to Scream. That is like the real Scream, as opposed to what 5 and 6 were. Scream 7 was a big test, and it's so unfair that Scream 7 had so much to live up to, such a high standard for everything. In my opinion, it easily clears that bar of being the best modern Scream movie. For me, there's not a single doubt in my mind that 7 is better than both 5 and 6. In my opinion, I wouldn't have to think twice about it. It is like a natural living fact that 7 is better than 5 and 6. It's like, boom, not even a question. So I wanted to know, though, what do people out there really think? Because it's also kind of a tall order for me to put 7 against not only one film, but 2 films, 2 recent films. So I actually asked this question across social media. So first, of course, I asked it on Patreon, which, I mean, I feel like my Patreon, this result didn't surprise me. We almost had 100%. Besides a few naysayers, you know who you are. But the result here was 96% to 4% saying, yes, 7 is the best modern Scream movie, aka 7 is greater than both 5 and 6. So then I asked on Instagram, and the results were varying. Those polls only last 24 hours. And the results were varying between 70 and 80% to 30 and 20%. I think it landed at 73% said yes. Scream 7 is the best modern Scream movie over 5 and 6. And so 27% of people said that either 5 or 6 or both were better than 7. So, yeah. And I asked on Facebook, and as it stands right now, at the time of this recording, I have 61 to 39. 61% of people said that Scream 7 is the best Scream movie over 5 and 6, 5 or 6, and 39% say no, either 5 or 6 is better than 7. So, I mean, these results are pretty awesome. I'm really happy. Facebook, it's interesting that the result still held pretty handily. I mean, it's not close. It's not even near close. With it's almost 2/3, right, of the general public. So across the board, everyone here says that Scream 7 is better than both 5 and 6. It's a really stunning result. I mean, we need to just sit with that for a moment. We had 2 movies come out before Scream 7. We thought that was the way, and Scream 7 came out in spite of all of the negative stuff, was able to overcome and get to this result. I love that. I'm really happy about that. I think it goes to show what exactly the critics were up to, that, or just how out of touch, the critics are. I definitely feel as though that Scream 7 is the best modern Scream movie. I think you're going to hear from my guests different POVs and different opinions about why they all kind of contribute to this same thesis statement. I also just want to thank a new Patreon here who subscribed. Her name is Lindsay Bayboot. So thank you, Lindsay. So, all right, everybody, please enjoy the rest of the episode. And coming next week, we are starting this new series of episodes that I've been working really hard on with my friends Mark Karim, Anthony DiPuzzo, and Jess Melendez. We've been trying to cover Scream 7 in like really historical ways. Like I want to have like these kind of like epic shows where we're covering Sidney in Scream 7, Gale in Scream 7, the ghost face theme of Scream 7 and Tatum in Scream 7. And we've been working hard on them. So next week we start Sidney week. So we're going to have part 1 and part 2 of Sidney Prescott's character arc development in Scream 7. And then we're going to have part 1 and 2 of Gale week the next week, the last week of April, and then so on and so forth. And my friend Ivan actually is going to have a little break in there. He had like this really amazing concept for a Jessica episode, which we've already recorded, and is really really smart. So I love celebrating this movie. I truly love this movie, and it makes me sad to think about all of the people out there who are using this movie to rage bait. And it just goes to show how tacky a lot of like content creation is. And I will just say, as a closing note here, I love Scream 7, and my friends love Scream 7, and the people who are associated with this podcast generally love Scream 7. And this is a Scream 7 space to actually talk about the merits of the movie and engage with the movie, not to rage bait about it, not to be negative performatively and do this, performance of anger or indignation or trying to pose for clickbait as it pertains to Scream 7. We aren't doing that. We're actually here talking about the real movie. And I think history is going to be on our side, not these losers. So that's all I have to say. All right, everybody. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and I am really excited to be sitting here with my next guest. So he is somebody who he listens to the podcast every week. He is super engaged. He gets what I'm saying. Whenever I do my spiel about anything, he listens, he understands it, and I just love this guy. He is so awesome. So everyone, please welcome my friend Keaton. Hey, Keaton.
Hey, thank you for those kind words. I'm really happy to be here, really excited. I haven't been on the podcast for quite some time now. I can't remember how long it's been, but really excited. I follow you, follow every post, every episode. You seem to really hit everything on the head, and you've been a big part of my Scream fandom for the last 4 or 5 years, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I have to say back to you, you've been a big part of my Scream fandom in terms of just like your commentary to what I say, but also your own commentary. Like you've made really cool posts about like the different serial killers. Why don't you tell everybody about those? You did Roman, Mrs. Loomis, and they've gone pretty viral.
Yeah, on my old Twitter, of course, but I had a bunch of threads that I did on I think it was the first 6 Ghostface killers, basically just breaking down like not just like who they were as Ghostface, but who they might have been before, what types of lives they might have lived before everything went down. I had a really, really good viral one with Mrs. Loomis, who's my favorite killer, by the way. But yeah, they're like no longer than 20 posts a thread, but I try to keep them in chronological order too of their lives and uh and how they impact Sydney's life and all that stuff and how they make their way to the movies. So I have a lot of fun with those. I need to do a couple more now. I've pretty much done all of the killers from the first four films. So now I need to start doing some for Richie, Amber, etc.
Can I just be shady? It's like, do you have to? Can't you just skip to Jessica? I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. So, Keaton, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. My username is Keaton and then the number 4 and then IZ. Keaton 4IZ.
Cool.
That's pretty much where I do all my, movie talk and screen talk and stuff like that.
Well, and everyone, please go follow him. He had to unfortunately get a new Twitter account. So follow Keaton, follow Keaton, follow Keaton. I love interacting with him. And I love he actually posts movie reviews, every weekend when he sees new movies or even like older movies he's seeing for the first time. But Keaton, before we talk about Scream 7, which I'm dying to hear your thoughts, what is the Keaton official ranking now?
Okay. Okay. I am a number 2 guy for sure. Like I said, Mrs. Loomis, I love her. I just love the fact that it's the mother and my best friend is my mom. I'm a mama's boy. So I just that everything about 2 is my favorite. So I go 2, 1, 4, 3. I'm pretty much it's going to be really hard for me to break the original 4, to be honest. And then 7, 5, 6.
So, despite you being a Scream with Ryan C. Showers showerhead, I should say, I haven't been able to break 3 over 4 for you, huh?
I mean,
I
to be
know, I'm
honest,
just teasing.
honestly though, like it's really just been the past couple of years where that took over 3, and that's just because I've had more time to sit with, the the motive of Jill and being of that generation that she was in when I watched that, over time, it took me a lot of time to let that marinate. Like, it just felt like I remember seeing it at the time with my dad. I saw it, like, what was that, 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember being really young. I was like 13, 14, and it just didn't sit right with me at the time. It felt like kind of a jab at the younger crew, the younger crowd of people, and I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know. I was frustrated. I was intrigued. Felt kind of backstabbed. Like, what is he saying this about younger people for? And
And now you get it.
year yeah, years later, it's just like he had like a crystal ball. He could see exactly what was happening in front of him with the younger crowd of people. But if you were to ask me, my reveal and my final act, number 3 is probably up in the top of my ranking for that. Yeah.
Well, so Keaton, you were really along the journey with me to hear, yes, Nev should come back. This should be Sydney's story. And I'm just curious now. So Scream 7 is here. We got it. Did it live up to the hype? What are your thoughts on Scream 7?
Oh my god. I had a blast with this one, absolutely. And I will admit, with Scream 6, I fell victim to the excitement, just having that be the newest one, and I felt like, "Oh my god, it's in New York," and, this and that, and, as time went on, I continued to dissect each scene and each character, and I realized, "Okay, this one isn't for me." I see all the things that Ryan is pointing out, and
Sorry.
it just felt no, thank you. I learned more about movies over the last couple of years too. I've just started to realize that 6 just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I still love it, obviously, but for 7, I absolutely had a blast. It honestly felt like I was transported back to 2011, and I was watching a direct sequel to Scream 4. I've heard a lot of people think like it feels more like 3, maybe a little like 2. I think it has the look, I think it has the feel, everything of like Scream 4. And I love that about it. Personally, I have been waiting for that story of Sydney and her life and how it's evolved. I've been waiting for that since 2011. Obviously, I was excited for Scream 5 and 6. Those helped revive the franchise. I was totally in for the ride for new people, new final girl and all that. But this feels like just total full circle. It feels just so rewarding that we finally get to see this story all these years later.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had a great theater experience. I went opening night on Thursday night. Theater was buzzing. You could feel it in the air. Even just walking in, I could see everybody else walking in with their Scream shirts, with their masks. While I'm standing in line getting popcorn, I could hear all the people whispering about Sydney, about Stu and Gail and all that stuff. They're taking pictures with all the big boards and screen, big screen boards, and it just felt like, wow, we're really here right now.
Yeah.
This is surreal. And yeah, the theater was packed. I had all the cheers and clapping like everybody else too, and that just was so special. I just couldn't stop looking at my buddy and like, just saying, "Oh my God, we're really here right now."
In my opinion, the definitive Sydney and Gail movie in history, right? Where
Mhm.
Sydney is at her best, Gail is at her best, and we have this amazing relationship with Sydney and her daughter. We have Nev Campbell front and center again. And everything that you described about the experience of going is just like, I feel like this was something really special. Like, this was it. This was the Scream experience of the modern era. And I think it's also the best Scream movie of the modern era. I think it's just on a quality level, it is the best. Would you agree with that statement?
100%. 100%. Yeah, it felt like this one had a lot more Scream DNA embedded in it. It felt not just paying homage to the old ones, but it just felt like that mystery was there. It felt like we didn't get as many big performative stunts like we did in 6 or the big set pieces and, the constant one-liners. This felt very intimate. It felt much more calculated and you keep using the word lean. I think that's perfect. Just felt like a Scream movie. It felt like it had Scream DNA. And I will admit, I think Scream 5 had much more Scream DNA than Scream 6. And so to kind of go back to that, it felt like, okay, we're going back to the roots. We're going back to this, this feeling again. So totally
Well,
agree.
so let's talk about Kevin, okay? What did you think of his filmmaking, of him as a director, the writing, etc.?
I thought he hit it out the park. Like I said, I don't think he overstuffed the film with anything that, other than the bar scene, the death at the bar. It felt like nothing was overdone. You
Mhm.
know, it felt like nothing was forced, and I felt so many things like that in 5 and 6 that it was just like it felt like the writers were in the room and they thought to themselves, "Hey, how do we reference this real quick? Oh, hey, who can say this real quick so that that satisfies that group of fans?" You know, like this movie just felt very natural. It
Mhm.
felt like the story Kevin concocted flowed nicely together. It wasn't choppy. You know what I mean?
And all the pieces fit together in the way that like the original trilogy and 4 did, especially like the original trilogy in terms of like,
Mm,
I find it so beautiful the way that like Fallbrook and the idea of Fallbrook kind of link up with, the overall conclusion. And I just think it's a very audacious Scream movie. A lot of people are saying that it's tame or dull or kind of a repetitive. I don't see it that way. That's what Scream 5 and 6 were. What Scream 7 does with the killer and the motive, it's challenging. And that's in addition to all of the amazing character work that they give Nev to do with Courtney and Isabel independently, but also by herself. I actually like the aspect of the lean quality that I keep discussing about Kevin's approach. It's a different kind of Scream movie. And I think over time, people are going to grow with this movie, going to be like a Scream 3 and 4. I think that the reviews were really harsh and unnecessary. I think the way that everything's went down has been a damn shame. But I think over time, people will grow to see that this is actually it. And I think people are going to regret that they were harsh and mean and cruel and weird and obnoxious about Scream 7 when it was released, when this could be the last Sidney movie ever. I don't think it will be, but it could be. You never know what's going to happen. We all thought that we'd be here sitting talking about a Sam movie. So,
yeah, no, in terms of like, I really think, like you said, it is similar to 3 and 4, but just I can't help but feel it like 4 because I remember going to school the next week, whatever, and people were saying the exact same things about 4 that they're saying about 7. Like, I'll never forget everybody shitting on Jill and having a shitty motive and it felt lazy and they finished the movie in that boring house and she beats herself. Like I remember people telling me how dumb it was and just like and there was a part of me that was, I was meeting them halfway. Like I said, I felt a little off about it at first, but over the years, I mean, I take everything back that I ever said about 4, which was minimal, but like it feels the same. I don't know about you if you remember what people were saying for 4, but I felt like it had and a lot of people obviously criticized the filter. They criticized some of the what was it? It was like they didn't criticize the kills.
I think the goofiness was criticized,
Y
like the Kate and the mail slot, the fuck Bruce Willis, like that stuff was criticized. And I
Yes.
think people Scream 4 is a weird duck because that time, I mean, the post Scream 6 world of being a Scream fan before Scream 7 really sucked because of the Melissa Barrera bullshit. But, back then, around the time of Scream 4, people were so vicious about Kevin and Scream 3 and him not getting to write Scream 3, and they put so much pressure on Scream 4 that this was the Scream 3 that we always deserved. People acted as though it was going to be a natural continuation from 1 to 2 to 4, and that's not the movie we got. We got this very like standalone social commentary reunion movie that was very much of the time and even stylistically very different. And I think people were disappointed by that. They were trying hard to grit their teeth and say, yeah, but it's still better than 3. But people weren't thrilled about Scream 4. And honestly, the reviews weren't there. If you actually look at the Scream 4 reviews, Scream 3 has a higher Metacritic score than Scream 4 does, which is crazy to think based on the way that people talk. But yeah, I mean, people were not nice to Scream 4 back in the day.
Yeah, so just that feeling, I just can't help but see the parallels, and on top of it all, I think the motive, the reveal, everything will just only get better with every rewatch. I mean, I've seen it 4 times now, and I'm getting the same it took me years to build that up with 4. Like, it took me
Mhm.
literal years to really see how ahead of the times it was. This one, luckily, I don't think it'll take me that long. I don't think it'll take many other people that long, but I it just has the cousin film to 4. They just feel so similar.
Well, so what did you think of Jessica as the Ghostface killer and the reason that she's doing this and the execution by Anna Camp and frankly the lean finale?
Yeah, I thought she was amazing, especially the way you've been putting it over the last couple of weeks is how she depicts herself as a crazy person.
Mhm.
When you look at it that way and when you you try to take a 30,000-foot view and really see it from that perspective, she really is a crazy person. She is not making much sense in terms of the order of her, sentences and everything. And it just, I think that adds to it. I think
Yeah.
that really adds to I mean, you don't want to have everything answered to you right away when the reveal starts. Like, boom, you know everything now. Aha, we get it now. Like, you need the explanation. You need the time to kind of hear them out and maybe not hear them out and, see how they react to certain things. And I think the more you watch that, the more you realize that she did a really amazing job, and she was actually a lot sneakier than people think. And I can't help but see it is that the motive is clearly mocking me and you, people like the Sydney truthers, and that's the part that's I think is going to age really well.
And I'm sure that was the
Mhm.
bitchiness behind Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt. They were pissed that like everybody wanted Sydney back. Their characters that they think they created were slighted, but I think that it could be interpreted more broadly. You know this. You've seen these tweets. People going on and on about how Sam Carpenter, and her how morally gray she is, and how badass and like action hero she is. To use Jessica's phrase, "You saved my life." That's how people act about Melissa Barrera and her absence from Scream 7 and what they think was done to her. Like, well, I've never heard people say, "Oh my God, Nev Campbell, you've saved my life." Whereas I've heard that weird parasocial stuff as it pertains to Melissa, and it shows in how they've acted, right? And maybe I'm just biased because I continue to be harassed after 3 years of this bullshit by them. But I think it's more broadly just kind of talking about parasocial relationships we have with our favorite TikTokers, our favorite YouTubers, our favorite podcasters, the accounts that we follow online, and like the attachments that we form on these people. The heart of the matter is, Lee and her family were disrupted by three rando crazy people, that she didn't know. Two of three she didn't know, and that's kind of what makes Scream 7 brilliant. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Hadn't really thought of it like that, but I totally see that. And even the little jabs like what Gail said about the contract, about her career, So that those little things sprinkled in there too. Now I definitely can see that. I'm gonna rewatch it a couple more times with that lens now and see if there's any more things I can find for sure. Because I like that. And we gotta stick it to them a little bit.
Well, like even like, there's a really subtle one where like Sydney is doing the interview and she's talking to who she thinks she is Stu, or the person is pretending to be Stu, and she says, "You want to be the lead? Call me. You have a platform." And I'm just like, oh my God, it's just overwhelming.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but what did you think of our girls, Sydney and Gail?
Oh my God. Sydney, for the last 4 weeks, I cannot stop thinking about the development of Sydney's story. Like I said earlier, I have waited since 2011 for this Sydney story, this specific one. I have been waiting to see her as a happy wife, and I have been waiting to see her as a mother. And boy, did they deliver. Because, well, first of all, just opening the movie with her music like that in the opening uh, credits was just head to toe chills. Even just thinking about it right now, chills. I looked at my buddy and I was like, "Oh my God, here we go. It's Sydney's music. Oh my God, like we're really here." Like to see her as a happy wife too, I couldn't be happier. In every movie leading up to this, obviously, every person she's been associated with has been a suspect. It was a relief. And I don't know about you. I did not suspect Mark at all from the beginning. Just never thought that that was the story that needed to happen. That would have been too much like Jill and too easy, the family thing, blah, blah, blah. So I felt like I could trust Mark from the get go. And that made me really buy into them as a family and really buy into them as a couple and as homeowners, as co-parents, and even as she owns a business now. Like it all felt natural in that sense. I didn't have to look behind my back of who this husband might be. You know what I mean? That was just a relief, like knowing that her husband isn't a suspect. And personally, I'm as much as a fan of Scream 3 I'm not as big as a fan of Mark Kincaid. I like him for the character he is in Scream 3, but I don't think he's necessarily a good match for Sydney. I think he's too suave, he's too mysterious. Think the guy like Mark that she ended up with, I think he's exactly who I would have pictured her with, a guy who he's funny, he's still got the charm, but he seems like he could be a small town guy, like he seems like he's just down to earth, a good guy. And I've just never been on the whole Mark Kincaid train, and I really love him in 3, but yeah, I just thought her as a wife, seeing her genuinely happy, getting a moment where we're not studying her husband or boyfriend, we're just kinda there with them, and we're that felt really good. I don't know about you, but it was like a weight off my shoulders, and we had to put our attention on Ben, the other love interest, instead of Sydney's love interest, which I just
Mhm.
feel like is just little bonus points there.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, what was your favorite sequence in the film?
Okay, it's really tough to pick, but I really think the opening is the strongest. I just feel so much like I'm Scott in that moment. I genuinely felt like it was meta. It was meta in the sense of like they're fans of the movie franchise in their world, just like we're fans of our movie franchise in this world. And they're exploring the house that we saw first in the first movie world. You know what I mean? It felt like we were actually Stab fans in a Stab movie touring the house that it was like we were touring the house with them, you know? It didn't feel like we were stepping into a movie version of Stu's house again, and we had to kind of like, okay, it's like Amber's house, you know? It's like all of a sudden put your mind on the like this is Stu's house now. Remember that. With this one, it was like, okay, we are stepping in as a tourist. We are stepping in now as someone like Scott, as if we're the third wheel of this little couple for the night. His excitement feels so real. He says all the things that I would have said, like how he corrects her with the closet. Like I would have said that. I would be annoying my friends. Love that sequence. And then I just think the animatronic aspect to it is just genius.
Where would you say this ranks for you in terms of the openings?
Oh, geez. I think it's probably 3. I would go 1, 3, because I love the opening of 3 and just how Cotton was the very end of 2, and then all of a sudden he's just off just like that. I love that surprise. I think it's simple but very effective. It's not this over the top opening. So 1, 3, and then 7, and then 2. I really love 5's opening, and then 4, 6.
What did you think of Gale Weathers? You know, there was a lot of hype. I've literally, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've harassed the internet about Gale Weathers for the last 3 years. I've just been complaining and complaining. Personally, for me, I couldn't be happier with the Gale Weathers that we got. You know, other than maybe one extra scene, maybe a scene with her and Tatum, I
Mhm.
couldn't be happier with this version of Gale. What are your thoughts on Gale?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, maybe 1 or 2 extra scenes, but still the development we got from Gale too, in my opinion, this sounds bad, but I mean it in the best possible way. It felt really nice to see her have some quote unquote negative development
Mhm.
where she's actually going through some struggles and because typically we're given this, you know, all of her entrances always are strong, fierce, determined. She doesn't take shit from nobody. She does everything her way. And it felt like with this one, it was nice to maybe take a few steps back from that and see some of the things that she's going through now that she's older. Her career is, you know, declining. I hate to put it that way, but her career is declining. Um, and it was a much better direction than taking the easy way out, just making her the same Gale, you know,
Right.
and just the nerve damage, the comment about Dewey, it just makes me tear up. It's making me tear up right now. Like it felt like we were getting a more human Gale this time.
Well, so you've talked about Scream 4 a lot, and like I kind of get the sense from you that like you kind of see Scream 7, as Kevin Williamson said it, you know, that it is like kind of the continuation of 1 to 4. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and I feel like this not only applies to the obvious, which is Sydney, right, but it also is Gale Weathers. I feel like the Gale that we see here is the Gale of Scream 4 in a way, in terms of her personality and her energy.
Absolutely. I mean, the movie starts off with her being jealous about the lemon squares and she kinda holds that jealousy throughout the whole film. When she sees Sydney at the book signing, you know, she's kinda looking at her like, "Wow, this should be me. Like, I can't believe, you know, I've lost my spotlight." It does feel like that has been like, Gale 4 has been translated into Scream 7, Gale 7. So, I totally see that. I will say, I feel like she's more snippy in 4, and, you know, that's because I feel like she's going through a little bit less than she is in 7. But yeah, I totally agree. I can't help but see that this is a direct sequel. It's just like they look and feel the same. I mean, I can't say enough about it.
Well, so what did you think of Tatum and specifically like kind of the arc with Sydney and Tatum and the introduction of her as a new character?
Yeah, well, I know that you always ask your guests, "Who's your biggest screen crush?" She is 100% at the top of my list now. All of her photo shoots and everything leading up to the movie, I knew I was in love with her. I was just so ready for her, and I thought she absolutely killed it. I really like that Kevin did not set us up with this power girl right away. Like, she's learned everything from her mom already. She's well versed in the stab movies and she's like super equipped and ready for war. I'm really happy they didn't do that because I just feel like that would have been another easy way, the easy, like a just a lazy writing decision. And to see her from the beginning of the movie, she's someone who's searching for her own identity. She's in the shadow of her mom and but she doesn't really quite understand how big that shadow is yet, and she wants to learn more, and it's just this tug and pull with her and Sydney, and I thought it was just perfect. I thought it felt natural too. It felt like a real world relationship. And I think Sydney overprotecting as opposed to like over preparing her was much more realistic. I think 99% of all mothers would do that if they had a life like Sydney. I
Mhm.
think it's like I said, it's just super easy for someone to say, "Oh, well, she'll have a daughter, and Sydney will teach her all the tricks of the trade, and she'll be the new final girl just like that." And it's like, no, Sydney is smart. She wants to shield her from this trauma and try to guide her in a path where that obviously doesn't happen. And I think that was a great idea. I just thought that helped ground the film more. And if you think about it, Maureen shielded Sydney a lot too, just in different ways. We all throughout the first movie and well, first three movies, asks her dad, like, why did she have all these secrets? She's constantly wondering who her real mother was, and she's figuring it out as it goes. And I think that's very similar to how Tatum is. She's really can't break her mom. She can't get in there yet. Sydney tries her best to deflect and skirt, and I don't know. I think that dynamic is just one of the best parts of the film, to be honest.
Well, I love that. So I have to ask, about the ending scene with Sydney and Tatum and how Sydney goes into this big monologue about why she named Tatum after her best friend who was killed all those years ago. Because Tatum, I think, has been absorbing it to mean something negative or to mean something shallow or superficial or weird. And Sydney says the most beautiful thing imaginable to her. It's the weird kind of climax that we weren't expecting, but we absolutely needed. And I feel like this is what sets Scream 7 apart. And again, I don't understand the reviews that ignore McKenna Grace's death, that ignore the big sequence, the home invasion, that ignore the Gale relationship with Sydney, the Sydney and Tatum relationship, but also this epic speech. It's unlike anything that's ever been in a Scream movie. Sydney is not one to go on speeches. Like even in my favorite police station scene, Mark Kincaid has to pull it out of her. You know what I mean? Sydney does not want to talk. And for her to volunteer these colorful descriptions of her best friend and like speaking from the heart, I think was such a great moment for her, such a great moment for them, and a great moment for Tatum to understand herself. And it's just like so good.
Absolutely. Especially since earlier in the movie, Tatum had brought it up about her name and like I'm named after a girl who got her head crushed by a garage. Like you could see it in Sydney's behavior and body language, like that kind of threw her off guard, like, whoa, whoa, like and she didn't have a straight answer for her then. And Tatum, runs off and she's like, I guess I know what you think of me, like blah blah blah. And I think right there when you realize Sydney kind of doesn't know yet how to articulate that. And then at the very end, everything Tatum's gone through with, learning on the fly, just being scared for your life and doing whatever it takes, like to then top it off with that Tatum speech about her name. Just, it was, another thing, it wasn't overdone. It did not feel like they were getting in all the lines that we're waiting for, or like, aha, or like, oh, haha, there's another one. Like, it felt like a genuine mother-daughter conversation about how this is where we've come now, that now I can tell you about my best friend Tatum. Like, they even stopped Sydney at the right point where Isabel said, "That's enough for now." Like,
Yeah.
it felt like they wrapped it up and they didn't overdo it. They knew when to stop. And those those types of things are what make scenes that impactful. And I think Kevin hit that one out of the park too, especially with those three walking down the driveway together. I know you posted about it and how that's like one of the greatest shots of the entire franchise. It's my screensaver.
If Kevin Williamson had called me and said, "Ryan, what do you want the last shot of this film to be?" I would have said that, and he gave it to me. So it's so funny. Keaton, what did you think of the twins here?
Oh my God, so much better than 5 and 6. If any of you are familiar with my opinions on Chad and Mindy, over the last couple movies, I cannot stand them personally. I think, especially five, I think Mindy is just like, they literally said straight up, "You're going to be the new Randy," and that's like all you're going to do. And it felt so forced. I remember sitting there with my dad and looking at him thinking he's not understanding any of this. Like this, it's like, yes, she's making sense, but he's not so as well versed in the franchise and in horror as some of us. So I just knew a lot of it was going over his head. I knew like she was talking too fast. I just thought it was so forced. Her excitement was so forced. I thought Chad in number five was pretty corny, pretty forced. I really love Chad in six. I think that's where we actually get some character out of him, where, he's in love with Tara, and, we watch that develop. And now in seven, he's on the camera crew. This one now, it feels like they're actually put in the movie for more than just their basic archetype that they were always meant to be, the jock and the movie geek. It feels like now they actually have a place in the franchise, like moving forward. I mean, they actually have a place that they're meant to be in this world now, as opposed to before. I was just like, please kill Mindy. Like I was begging for Mindy to die. But when I saw seven towards the end of the movie, I was thinking, crap. I'm hoping both of them live. I actually want to see their future, and her becoming a potential newswoman now, and kind of her being on TV with her knowledge of movies and all the killings and everything. I think they set themselves up very nicely, much better than 5 and 6. I'm very satisfied with that. And that was one of my biggest concerns going in. I was really just hoping that her camera people would just be new people, new characters, and we would get a couple extra deaths. But this way, I think actually works. And yeah, it just felt, again, I keep saying it, it felt natural. It felt like that's where they probably would have ended up, you know?
Well, I appreciate you saying that because a lot of people have said the opposite. And but like the way you described that, you said like they finally have a place in this world. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like they have arrived. And like, honestly, I agree with you about I don't want them to die. Keaton, is there anything else you'd like to share here about Scream 7?
Okay, one last thing that is just, I think, is the film's biggest success. Obviously, the box office has to do with this. I think we need to be talking more about the flawless, genius marketing campaign of this movie. I think they captured the two biggest subsects of fans in this franchise. They got the Sidney people and they got the Stu people. I mean, it was genius. And the whole time I pretty much knew that this was like a tease. This was meant to, make people's ears perk back. And it worked. It led to the best franchise record box office I can't help but think about how everything needed to go right with that. They needed to have the right teasers. They needed to say just enough, but not enough, and it's all people are talking about with Stu and Sidney returning. And like I said earlier, I know you don't disagree a little, but like the fact that Sidney was returning to her franchise, it'd been 15 years since she was in the spotlight. Everybody knows this. We have the director who's the original writer. Everybody's been wanting him back in the Scream world for 15 years. And then on top of it, the number one theory in the entire franchise that you literally can't escape, you can't evade the Stu theories. They nail it in you. And it just worked. Like I can't really articulate much further than that because it worked so well. And I just think we need to always remember that, and how they really played to us, not just the movie. They didn't just promote a movie they made. They were promoting like philosophies of the entire franchise. They were promoting people's deep love for the things that made it the franchise it is. I love that part. I wake up for the last 4 weeks every day thinking about how genius that was. Then it doesn't even matter if he's alive or not. You know what I mean? It worked, that just all of that just worked. So
That's how I feel. I would say it exactly the same way. I don't think it matters if Stu is alive or not. I love how you describe the marketing and how yes they focused on what really matters to people as it pertains to Scream, and that is Sidney Prescott. You know what I mean? And that is the legacy. That's Gail Weathers. I mean, again, I can't emphasize enough. I can't believe this Gail Sidney movie, this relationship, this arc, this emotional emphasis on them as women, as characters. This movie exists. This version of Scream 7 exists. So on top of that, you have Sue and you have the legacy. And I think that kind of speaks to what me, you, everyone on Twitter, what we like with the quote Nev fans, that's what they call us. But like, I just think we're Scream fans. I think the idea of being a Nev fan is not the same as being a Melissa fan, right? I think to be a Nev fan is to be a Scream fan. And I think that you described it perfectly. And I think that it is part of the success. It's kind of a miracle. And when you think about just how successful this movie has been, breaking every single possible financial record, is despite the controversy, despite the critics' reviews, despite the boycott, despite the internet bullshit, it was the biggest ever. Everyone deserves a round of applause, from the marketing campaign people to Kevin to Nev and Courtney to Gary Barber to fans like you and me. Everyone deserves a round of applause for this moment of Scream. It really was the Halloween 2018 moment for this franchise.
absolutely. We have to remember too is we like for the longest time, remember everybody was just constantly complaining about when is this marketing going to finally like when is it going to start? What's going on? Do people not realize that for months, literal months, the little teasers they gave us about Stu and Sydney coming back, that was all they needed. They just threw a little piece, little bait in there for all of us, and we talked about it for months. We literally self-promoted the movie without any promotions coming out yet. Like
Mhm.
it is genius. It is meta on top of meta. You can talk about all the meta in the movie, but then the fact that they used our fandom almost against us, it
Yep.
was just, I think it's like the most fascinating part of the entire film. And I'm going to remember it. Obviously, I'm going to never forget it. But I think in 20, 30 years, when we have more Scream movies, like, I think we have to go back to this marketing campaign and at least maybe not try to replicate it, but take some pointers from it and understand what really keeps this fandom going. It's not just the movies. It's how all the fans view the movies and then
Mhm.
discuss them, you know?
Well, and I think the biggest takeaway is that, there's this emphasis, this weird emphasis that like, yeah, you should focus on new teenagers and new and fresh and young, and that's what sells. And I would disagree. I think it's the IP. I think it's the world. I think it's the legacy of Scream. So I think that
Mhm.
there were some lessons learned by everyone involved. So yeah. Well, Keaton, please tell everybody again where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. My username is Keaton and then the number 4IZ. Keaton,
Awesome. Keaton, thank you so much for coming and being a part of the show.
of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the content you put out there. I think I tell you this all the time. I think you are very responsible for keeping big portions of this fandom together, at least all the close pockets that we know. You always know what to say at the right time. And so
Aw.
you keep doing your thing. And yeah,
Keaton, thank you so much. All right, everybody, please welcome my friend Dominic. Hey, Dominic.
Hi.
Let's. Do you mind if we start with your Scream ranking and then we'll kind of dig more into the substance of
Sure.
Seven? So hit me with it.
So, okay, I'll start with the top and go down to the bottom. Top didn't really change. It's still Scream 2. I don't think, and I've told this to some other people as well, I don't think Scream 2 will, for me, ever be top, really. Yeah, there was a time where I thought, okay, you could top it, but, with sequel, I think it's actually quite hard to do that. So that's still number one. And so now it already gets hard. And this is one of the unique aspects of this franchise is that the rankings are very different and very hard to do. So I would probably say now at this moment might seem a little controversial to some people, but I think actually Scream 7 is going to be number 2 for me. Yeah.
Yay! Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I was so excited by that. Oh gosh, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just because, and we will elaborate on that later. But there's just so many aspects that I think this movie did right, that it did it well. I think the positives overweigh the negatives by quite a margins. And number 3, and as you already said, you could rank like from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. You could rank them in any way, and it would be a correct ranking, right? And that's
yeah.
how I also see it. And so I would probably say 4, and then 1, then 3, then 5 and 6, honestly, yeah, I'm not really so keen on those two movies anymore, to be completely honest. So I would say, for the sake of a ranking, first 5 and then 6.
Well, I really like that, and I find it interesting that you even put 4 above Scream 1. I love stuff like that
Mm.
because, as you could tell, so, listeners, I have kind of really, since I got home from vacation and I got to frame all my Scream 7 stuff, I have my full-size Scream 3 poster that's always been here in my office. I have a full-size Scream 7 poster behind me, but also I have a Scream 4 poster. I figured out a way to put it up in my office, so whenever you're on Zoom with me, you'll see Scream 4 in the background. My one of our Patreon friends, Patrick Leahy, actually gifted me that poster. So, but no, I
Mhm.
it's just so funny because like in my office now, I'm just surrounded by the three what I would consider the three underrated sequels, which are 3, 4, and
Yeah.
7. So I love.
Yeah.
I actually remember from our previous conversations that you are a big Scream 4 fan. So that's very cool.
Yes. Scream 2 and Scream 4 for me have sort of like Scream 4 was for a time not really my favorite sequel,
Mhm.
because it lacked some parts that I found very important to a Scream movie. For example, the emotion and some suspense. I feel like it also lacks a little bit in that kind of aspect. But it just has also some very strong aspects about it, such as, could say, the meta aspect of all of it. Could say it's a very rational movie. It's a very intelligent movie. The aspects it talks about fame, and how people today achieve fame, and that all was done 15 years from now is quite amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I gotta say that I have it so high on my list.
Well, Dominic and I are actually sitting here right like the day after it was like formally. I mean, it's been kind of rumored
Yeah.
and been announced about the 4K steelbook that's coming or the physical release of the Scream 4 4K. And so, I mean, it is technically out streaming right now, but it looks great. I'm really enjoying streaming it that way. But we have the official news from Lionsgate that it is coming physical media release. I'm so excited. It's just so fun to kind of be
Yeah.
reliving Scream 4 right now.
Yeah, me too. And I can tell you, once that is open for pre-order, I am going to as fast as I can.
Well, so it's funny because to kind of use Scream 4 as like a bridge to get to Scream 7, I kind of
Mm.
feel like, so Kevin Williamson, I asked him a question recently and he answered and said that he thinks that 7 is kind of a continuation of the 1 to 4 kind of storyline, if that makes sense, which is obvious. It's self-evident, but I think it's also fun that he admitted that Scream 7 is going to be a lot like Scream 4. I think Scream 7, there will be more movies after Scream 7. I imagine Scream 8 and Scream 9 will happen, and it will be around Tatum and Sidney, unlike Scream 4. Yet, Scream 7 has this like standalone kind of quality, and it's getting people to react right now in the moment. It's not having universal, finger snaps like 5 and 6 did. And I think that's actually a good thing. The more I reflect on it, I think it's more interesting to be a Scream 3 and a Scream 4 where over time people engage with you and what the film is saying is challenging. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Scream 7. So I really strongly feel that Anna Camp and her ghost face, the ghost face of it all in Scream 7, will be seen in better context in 5 years when people kind of sit with it more. So I want to just start out by asking you ranked 7 so high. Where do you stand on Anna Camp, Jessica, and the finale?
I personally love her. From the first viewing that I had with this movie, I always loved her performance. I can remember that back then I told my friends maybe this movie is not so much about the reveal, but rather about the characters and the relations and Sydney's motherhood and how that is affected by this whole situation, by this new Ghostface attack, and how is she going to coordinate everything? How is she going to manage throughout this hard situation, right, in this family? But over time, or watching it more and more, I really got to say that I just enjoy her performance so much, and I'm always looking forward to her reveal, to see this crazy character Jessica performed by Anna Camp again, and her mocking that she does, and how she mocks Sydney, and how she's just so chaotic, right?
Mhm.
She doesn't really have this red through line throughout her speech. It's just she jumps from one point to another, and that's something that I think she gets criticized for, because we are always used to, no, he's going to just lay out his motive in a completely structured way, but that's not the case for her, and I really like that. And I gotta say, I love her motive. It's quite unique, and that has a lot of aspects to it, and it also leaves with the question, what's her end goal? Does she want to survive, or does she just not care anymore? And according to Anna Camp, she's on a suicide mission.
Well, so I want to just kind of piggyback on that, in like how you described the finale, because there's a lot of people who don't like the finale. If anything, I can point to about a good faith argument against the movie. It's that critics didn't like the finale, or people in general, they aren't getting it right now, and it's shorter. That's also throwing people. It's so interesting that your two favorite films, Scream 2 and Scream 7, they are like the polar opposites in terms of finales. Like Scream 2 is the longest finale. It's the most drawn out. It's like over 20 minutes long. You have two different Ghostface killers revealing at two different times, two different speeches. You have Get Weathers, you have Cotton. There's so much going on there. Whereas here, it's very contained, it's very lean, it's very organized, it's very to the point. It's just a completely different approach. So, does the length of the finale bother you?
Maybe a little bit because, yeah, maybe a little bit in the terms of that I would maybe appreciate a little more to hear from Marco as well, the other Ghostface, and because he kind of has like two lines and then he's not allowed to talk anymore. And so maybe on that side I would have appreciated like a little more. But then on the other hand, I guess it's also kind of the point of his Ghostface, right? That he is not really there to talk or to do anything. He's just this random guy that wants to kill Sidney or torment her. That's also some of the like to some extent I feel like that's also the beauty of this movie is that it's just some randoms and it's just so realistic. I mean, why would it always have to be someone very close to Sydney, right? It just could be anyone. And so on that hand, maybe a little too short for Marco's speech. And maybe I would have liked the second part where Jessica disappears into the garage to evolve into a full fleshed out set piece, you could say, right? And they have this cat and mouse game again, and similar to the one with Joel McHale's character, where he was in the garage as some kind of you could say reference to that scene. But then again, I mean, the fight was amazing.
I just think that I take your 2 points, and I would actually agree with you. Maybe like if they could have given like maybe 30 seconds more to Nev Campbell walking around the garage with the gun before Jessica comes down, or maybe she does come down and she's moving in and out around, like that would have been cool. I think we get enough of that where I'm satisfied. In terms of Marco, how you said, well, that's kind of the point. The point is that these are just three literally crazy people who are associated with this mental hospital, that they're the ones that are coming after Sydney, and that's the point. It's not personal this time. It's something detached. I don't mind that Marco doesn't get more of a moment. To me, the way that Carl, Marco, and Jessica, the way that they're each proportion kind of makes sense to me in the way that the movie flows. But, well, I know we started at the end, but let's start at the beginning. So, I would say that this movie, Scream 7, is maybe the most unique Scream opening besides Scream 2. I think Scream 7's opening is closer to Scream 2 than it is to any of the others because it's the opening that's, I think, most unbound from a phone call. You know what I mean? Even like Scream 6 opening, it is unique. That opening is still majority on the phone. Whereas Scream 2 and Scream 7, it's about the environment and kind of like the spectacle that's going on in the physical space. So what are your thoughts on the opening?
I also love the opening. That's also one of the reasons why I think it's the best modern Scream movie is simply because the opening is just the best, And you can really see Kevin's enhancements in this opening scene with this animatronic that he added. It creates a lot of fake outs, like successful fake outs, and suspense as well. You don't know when the change happens. Although I think you can actually see it, and you can actually see, I think that I think if I remember correctly, before he changes, he holds his knife differently than when after he changes. And I think there's like one certain picture in the scene where he's in the background and you suddenly see him holding his knife differently. And I think then you can tell, okay, he actually changed. But apart from that, it's just a great opening. It creates suspense. It creates likable characters. I felt something when Madison died. It was filmed very well, very emotionally. You could see it from her point of view, right? You saw everything burning around her, and you could really feel like she just can't believe what's happening at the moment. Someone just came in, killed her boyfriend, and is setting everything on fire. It just seemed so tragic. And one thing I would like to add is I wonder if Kevin Williamson was the one on this phone call, you could say, where the owner of the Airbnb was calling them to do this little game. I wonder if that's his voice actually.
I have to go back and listen. That's a cool observation. So I like that you bring up the sympathy that we have for Madison. I feel like it's been a long time that since we've felt like true empathy for the victim at the beginning. And I guess it's so weird to say that because like we love Cotton Weary from Scream 2 and I
Yeah.
like him in the opening of 3. I don't have like that overwhelming sense of sympathy that I had for 1 and 2. Because we kind of take on her perspective in the opening. It's sadder, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can just imagine from her perspective how it must have been for her to go through all of this in just a matter of minutes, and everything gets burned down around her. So he doesn't even kill her straight away, he just gives her one stab, which makes it just more cruel because he could have ended it right away. But you can see like this, I think that's also like one parallel between Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven is that it's not about these 100 stabs, like like Ghostface stabbing the victim 100 times. It's just like one fierce stab, and then everything, goes slow. Like then the kill slowly continues until she is then burned alive. So I feel like it was very successful.
Oh, good. Well, so, let's talk about the meat of the movie, which is Sidney Prescott, Gail Weathers, and Tatum Riley. Like those three. I mean, and of course, we have the twins and we have Mark. But in my opinion, Scream 7 can really be boiled down to two things. It's like Sidney is at the top of the triangle, and it's about her relationship with Tatum and her relationship with Gail. So, what are your thoughts here?
Amazing performance by Nev Campbell, definitely. You could just feel that she was behind this and that she was fully committed to her character and just became one with Sidney, you could say. And I feel there was a lot of chemistry between Nev Campbell and Isabel May in this movie. I really bought the daughter as the mother-daughter relationship between them. It's hard to say which one is the best Sidney performance, but it's definitely among the best. I would probably say Scream 3 is probably a little better still, just because of the finale. Scream 3's finale is just very, very strong. The fight between Roman and Sidney. I think it's second, maybe third after the first one, the Scream one, but at least third. Very good performance.
I don't know if I'm being biased that in my Scream 3 love that I'm going to keep it up front with Sidney, but I do think that the emotion and the performance is still the towering thing in Scream 3. But Scream 7 I think is flawless. I think it's like the best version of Sidney we possibly could have gotten.
Yeah.
There's not much that I could if they were coming to me with this script or this movie and they said, Ryan, is there anything we could do to make this better? I don't know if I could tell you about Sidney. I think that like
Yeah.
Sidney is done perfectly.
Yeah, and on yesterday's podcast that you had with Joey Valisi, he mentioned a very interesting topic, which I completely agree with, which is the continuity of this Scream story, right? And I would say back when the original trilogy was out and there was no Scream 4 and so on, I always imagined the future of Sydney to be um kind of like Scream 7 ended up, and so I think that it just in terms of the continuity and continuing Sydney's story, I think it's perfect, as you said.
I agree. I agree. Well, so, that's Sydney. And you mentioned Isabel May. Were you happy with Sydney's daughter and like meeting Tatum, the personality and kind of the growth that she goes through here in this movie?
I'm happy would maybe even be an understatement. I'm extremely amazed by her performance. I'm so glad that she is part of this franchise and that Kevin casted her and that she agreed to join. I feel she's like she's a very complete character. She has her weaknesses, she has her strengths. She has, she shows a lot of emotion, positive emotion, but then also sadness. She can be shy, but she can also be strong. And I gotta say, her character has been fleshed out very well, and just accompanied by an amazing performance. And I told my brother today as well. She has amazing final girl potential in her, and I can't wait what the future holds in store for her.
I like what you just said, final girl potential, because I think that's a really apt way of putting it. This is the Sydney story. Even though Tatum gets a huge chunk of it and we get to see her grow here, it still feels like we're in the beginning stages of it. I feel like we still haven't entered the Tatum story because this is still the Sydney story. So I feel like in Scream 8, we're going to see the more of that potential fulfilled and executed. Even if Kevin isn't as involved in the future films after this, it does feel right to me that Isabel was chosen by him and by Nev at this crucial juncture. I feel like we kind of lucked out in terms of like this could have been Radio Silence picking her. This could have been another director picking her. This could have been Christopher Landon picking her. And I just feel like this was chosen by the right people.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. As you already said, we sometimes don't appreciate that Kevin Williamson worked budget on this movie, right? And he did so in a big amount, and he contributed to the script a lot more than people say now. After the movie came out, all of a sudden people say like, "Oh, he didn't contribute to this script that much," when his name is first, you know. And yeah, as you said, we have to be lucky that he was the one who created her.
Gale Weathers, what are your thoughts on Gale Weathers and everything with Gale and Sidney in this movie?
Yeah, so I would definitely say it's a strong iteration of Game Weathers, definitely on the upper part of this franchise, much better than Scream Six, but that's not hard, you know, because Scream Six was basically complete regression of her characters. I would say that while we didn't see that much of her, we definitely saw, similar to Tatum, just a complete character again as well. We also saw her weaknesses, you know, and I feel like we didn't see that for a long time. Same with Sydney, we just saw this strong, you know, fierce woman that are not afraid of anything and don't have any weaknesses, are perfect, you know, and that's just not the case, you know. These are, you could say, in the universe, real people, right? And so we saw her struggling physically, I mean, mentally, and especially physically, which I loved. I loved this short but very effective moment of showing her holding her arm, and you know, and seeing the effect that she was attacked, but it also Dewey's dead, and we didn't really see any kind of reaction to that in Scream Six. I was baffled. I was like, wait, so the only thing she has to say is that, oh, you just move on? That's it? You know, no. Yeah, I was just very underwhelmed by Scream Six in that case, but Scream Seven definitely improved on it. Especially her relation to Sydney was very beautifully done.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So along with Gail, we see the twins again, and we meet Mark Evans, who is Sydney's husband. So, what did you think of these three characters, these three survivors? We'll probably see them in Scream 8 along with the three women we've been talking about. But what did you think of the twins?
Oh, okay. So the twins. I mean, I keep repeating myself, but amazing as well. And I can't agree at all with the sentiment that they feel shoehorned in. Not at all. I felt they had amazing chemistry together. And there were little things like her hitting his arm when she mentioned that when Tatum mentions that her name is Tatum, and it was just amazing to see how they bounced off each other, you know. And he was saying something, he was saying something, she was saying something, he was saying something, and it was just very fluent, very snappy dialogue, very Kevin Williamson-esque, right? And I'm a huge improvement over 5 and 6, especially over 6, coming from someone who really wasn't a fan of Mindy, but in this one, complete 180.
For me, I just feel like the chemistry here is night and day with just the two of them versus the four of them in Scream 6. I think, there was something that was so much more forced about everything in Scream 6. Here, it's just like I could just watch the two of them riff, unscripted, here, and they would make it entertaining and it would feel natural. And like the part at the end, I haven't really talked about this much, but like the sequence at the very end during the credits where Mindy's trying to give her first newscast and Chad is like kind of giving her shit behind the camera. That is hilarious. Like every single
Yeah.
time I have sat through, you could have left, after all the cast names, right? But I have sat through that scene every single time I saw Scream 7 in theaters. Like it really is terrific. It's because of them and because of the writing and kind of like where their characters are. And also allowing their characters to be themselves and not be forced into this like kind of group thing,
Yeah, and props to Joe McHale for Mark Evans. I also want to mention him quickly. Props to him. I was, since the beginning, actually, I was kind of convinced that he would pull this off. So, yeah, props to him as well.
Coming off of Scream 6 where nobody died, I feel like Mark was like the target for everybody and including me. I kind of changed, I flip-flopped back and forth a couple of times throughout the couple of years. When it was Patrick Dempsey, I kind of wanted him to go, because then we could check off we had a big survivor die and someone who's really important to the story. That being said, it wasn't Mark Kincaid. He wasn't a returning survivor. This was his first time out. He was used differently than I expected him to be in terms of the finale. Like having
Mhm.
Tatum and Mark both there with her, I think was
Yeah.
really telling and very, very unique. So, what did you think of the fact that he survived? Do you think it was the right choice to keep him alive? Do you have any regrets that there wasn't a big survivor death?
No, I don't have any regrets actually about that at all. That movie didn't even it made me think about that because it didn't seem unthinkable like in Scream 6 where Chad gets stabbed like 10 times in his chest. That's usually 99%, dead. But with him, I was surprised that he's alive. I was surprised that Mark actually is alive, and I like it. I was a fan of his character in this movie, and as Kevin Williamson also said, he's a good addition to the franchise, and I would really like to see where they go with him.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so what did you think of all of the stew of it all? The AI storyline, the plot of how the killer was coming after Sidney, and the fact that Matthew Lillard kind of did a lot of the heavy lifting for Roger Jackson in the middle part of this movie.
So Matthew Lillard was maybe he was I would say that his performance was among the best actually in this movie to me at least. He had such a energy in his performance. Like it was like he never stopped being this character, you know. And on one hand, I like the idea of making him an AI. I feel like it's a clever way and that completely works in today's day and age for Ghostface to torment Sydney to face with her past, right? And it's also a nice, neat little detail because her daughter's called Tatum, right? So that makes you think, oh, these guys are after Tatum because Stu is calling her, right? But I have to say, I'm not really sure whether I would have preferred for him to actually be alive in the end or not. I think it works both ways, but maybe would have worked actually a little better if he was to be revealed alive as this little coda they filmed, like a nice big twist in the end, you know, that people might have not expected. Either way, great performance by him and very watchable.
Were you surprised, happy to see Nancy Loomis show up?
Yeah, of course, of course. And her line, "Remember me," that was like that's such a nice detail. That's of course that's her phone call line, right? When she was calling Sydney in Scream 2. Yeah, it was very nice.
You know, that's actually a good point. The what the different AIs say to Sydney in that montage before the killer reveal, and they're all very on note, on key, on character for each of them, right? Nancy, Roman,
Yeah.
and Dewey, and of course Stu. I mean, honestly, can I just say something completely off the wall and controversial? I kind of think that Matthew Lillard gives a better performance here in Scream 7 than he even did in the original film. I know that sounds crazy, but he is so good in this movie. And maybe it's just because
Yeah.
there's less of him and it's been so long, but I just feel like, man, to your point, he gives an excellent performance. I think it's the best male performance in Scream 7.
Yeah, I would agree. It's the best male performance, followed closely by Joe McHale. And whether he's better than in Scream 1 is hard to say because his performance was amazing in Scream 1 as well. But he's very energetic in this one, I have to say. And his lines are quotable already, you know? It's showtime, bitch. Like, it's so good. Or she's been a bad bitch, as you said about Tatum. And yeah, and I have to say, as someone who was convinced that he's dead, right? I was actually kind of moved like throughout the way and throughout the film. Um I was actually not sure if he might be alive. The movie was able to convince me that he might actually be alive, and then in the end we find out that he's not. But uh, good job on that for making me convinced that he might actually be alive.
I agree. And like, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like the movie did such a good job of the stew of it all, where had he been alive or if he is still alive, and because like it's still hanging, just because Marco says he's dead doesn't mean he's actually dead, right?
Yeah,
I can't believe after all this time I'm saying this, but like the movie convinced me like, okay, I could get along with this, you know, if it happens at some point. Even though logically I do want him to be dead. I want that continuity, but like, you know, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's like, wow, the magic of Scream 6. Scream 6 made me into a Stu could be alive, thumbs up guy.
yeah, yeah. Same. I was not like that before. I can tell you that.
Well, Dominic, what is your favorite sequence in the movie? Like, what's your favorite set piece, or what's your favorite moment, or anything else you want to share about the movie?
Yeah, okay. Favorite sequence. I mean, probably going to be quite not a big surprise, but it's going to be the home invasion sequence. So many amazing aspects about that one. The fight, the suspense while they walk through this corridor. The score. I don't know if anyone mentioned the score already in this scene, but there's this specific moment when Sydney gets chased by Ghostface. Sydney and Tatum get chased by Ghostface into the safe room. There's this score by Marco Beltrami in the background. People should pay attention to that. It's amazing, amazing chase scene score. And, you know, then of course the team up, and then you know Gail's entrance, perfect. So I would say that's my favorite sequence. And what else can I say about the movie? One thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that this movie is not meta. It doesn't have anything to say, or that the motive is not connected to the opening scene. I would disagree with both things. On one hand, opening, Stu Marcus' house gets burned down, and that's where Sydney's final girl story started. Jessica wants to end that story, because she feels like she's past her prime. And so it makes complete sense that they would be like, okay, we're going to burn down the salt because this is where her legacy started. And so I feel like there's definitely a connection between the opening and the motive. And in terms of the meta aspect, the critiques about that, it is a little more light on the meta aspect, but it's definitely very open about what it wants to comment on, and that's nostalgia. And in today's day and age, it's very timely argument. A lot of things today, a lot of entertainment is based on nostalgia today. Everywhere you look, it's all about nostalgia. So it makes complete sense, and I really like the comment.
Dominic, anything else you want to share here about Scream 7 for now?
That's it. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to share my thoughts and opinion with you on this big platform.
Thank you. And again, I mean, I know from your ranking, but would you agree with the sentiment that Scream 7 is the best modern movie of this franchise?
Yes, and I would even go as far as to say it's better than Scream 4 for me, by a tiny bit, by a very, very tiny bit, but I would agree.
Well, Dominic, thank you so much. Please tell everybody where they can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at DOMEVIDACAK. So that's my first name and last name. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Thanks, Dominic. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me. I'm sitting here with Daddy Ghostface, Andrew Dominguez. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. What did you think of Scream 7? Did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, it was beyond the hype for me. It actually exceeded expectations.
Oh, that's so good. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, tell me about it. Tell me about everything. What was your favorite thing about Scream 7?
I think finally seeing Neb as a mom. I
Uh-huh.
think it's been something that I've always wanted to see from the beginning. Didn't really think it would happen in this situation so quickly. I guess coming from where the last two films had come from, I just didn't think it was going to happen. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear it. So, like, let's dig into that some more. So,
Mhm.
back on the first episode you were on in January,
Right.
we talked about H2O. What did you think of Scream 7 compared to H2O with the similar parent-child setup?
Yeah, I think it was definitely our H2O, and I do like that Sydney kinda stayed true to form, where with H2O, obviously Jamie Lee was more, an alcoholic. Her and her son had a lot of struggles. It seemed like he kinda knew from the jump, the story of, that she dealt with, and whereas this one, with Scream, it seemed like Neb was kind of sheltering her daughter versus, how Lori, did not shelter her son, kind of made him, have all the anxieties and deal with her anxieties and stuff. Whereas with Neb, she kind of sheltered her daughter from all that.
Were you surprised by the fact that Sydney was so guarded with Tatum and really struggled to communicate with her?
Yeah, I think I was a little surprised about that. That she didn't kind of it wasn't, warning her of anything or kind of preparing her for anything. But I think that kind of shows the difference, in the two characters, between Halloween H2O and Scream. So I think that's where the difference lies.
So, what is your favorite scene in Scream 7?
I wanna say I do think it's the scene with the in the wall. Even though it was still in the previews a lot, I think I thought it was gonna appear more towards the end of the film. Maybe, I thought that was gonna be kinda like the one of, like, the final scenes, but for it to be so much in the beginning, it actually made me even like it even more because there was so much more to come after it. Expected more towards the end of the film, for it to be, so much in the beginning, in that middle part of like that. Yeah, I don't know. This film was just so intense. Like I think you mentioned it before was that it's very streamlined. And I think that's the fact that it was, so intense from the jump from that part. Seems like from the theater until they get home, until, Gail shows up. I think it was just, yeah, it was really, to me, it made it more intense.
That amount of time from like McKenna Grace through Gale Weathers showing up, it holds you breathless. It just feels like
Right.
I almost feel like the way that we talk about, say, Olivia's death or where they climb over Ghostface in the car in Scream 2 or the Stab 3 set, this part of Scream 7, whether you just focus on McKenna or you just focus on the wall or Gale Weathers, all of those will be compared, talked about in the same regard, in the future.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
So I want to ask you about Nev Campbell's performance. What did you think of her return and her acting kind of being at the forefront? Did it live up to the hype? Where would you put it in your Sydney ranking compared to the other films?
Yeah, I think it was great. I think she stayed true to the character, exactly the way I thought her character would be, as a mom. I would probably say it's gonna be if we're just looking at her like performance, I would say it's definitely up there. I would say it's probably right behind, considering her screen time. I would say it's probably right behind 3 for me.
Cool. Me
Yeah.
too. I mean, like it's so good. Well, I have to ask about, we've kind of alluded to her already, but Gail Weathers. What did you think of Gail Weathers? Did it feel like she was restored for you going from 6 to 7?
Yes, 100%. The snarkiness, her entrance. I mean, I the crowd, I hadn't been in a crowd that lively and crazy since probably the second one, Scream
Oh yeah.
2. Yeah, so it was really intense. As soon as she showed up, people were cheering, roaring. I think they brought back her sarcasm, her snarkiness, her attitude. It was perfection.
Did you appreciate the investigation with Gail and Sydney?
I did. I kinda wish it was a little longer, but I
Mm.
did enjoy, yeah, the fact that they were kinda like a duo again together, teaming up, the whole thing, going to the psych ward. I did want a little more of that, but I mean, yeah, I still thoroughly enjoyed it.
What did you think of the interview? Whose side did you take? Who did you empathize more with, Sydney or Gail?
I empathize with both of them. I thought it was great. I think it was a long time coming. The interview was done true to their characters. I think Gail not really being I think had she been so soft the entire interview, I think it wouldn't have been true to who she is. Up until they or they have their conversation off stage. Sydney sees, what, Gail's been through, sees her, the way she talks about Dewey. We finally get that a little bit. Her taking the pill, her seeing her hand, kind of tremble. I think it was great.
Were you surprised that Scream 7 went there emotionally with Gail and like really showing us like this physical defect?
Yeah, I do like that a lot. I think it kind of gives a lot of depth to her, what she's been through. Yeah, I mean, she's been through the ringer. So, I mean, to see the emotional toll, the physical toll, yeah, and I think that's why, I think a lot of people at first didn't understand. I mean, that's why Sydney left her behind, because she
Yeah.
felt like she had been through it. Sydney wasn't there for her, and then, I think essentially, she just didn't want her to die.
Yeah. Well, so let's just pivot from Gale to the finale, 'cause I just want
Uh-huh.
to know where you stand with Anna Camp and the overall finale. It's kind of divisive. Some people really like it and admire it, or they don't like it. Where do you stand?
I think after watching it a couple of times, I do understand it more. The first time I saw it, the crowd was so crazy. I mean, you couldn't hear really
Mhm.
what, whenever she revealed herself, what she was really saying most of the time, because there's lots of laughing and, surprise. There was a lot of people talking in the theater, which it was all part of the fun of watching it the first night. But I think initially I didn't really grasp the full reasoning behind it, but I think Anna Camp was so good, and I felt like we hadn't had really a killer that was that good and funny and crazy since Jill, that I was kinda just so into that. I think it was on one of your, recent pods where you kind of had talked with somebody how they could have gone a little more into detail, um, for a lot of the other audience that didn't pick up on the reasoning, because that's really a lot of what a lot of people are questioning. But I think maybe a tad bit more could have helped. But overall, I mean, I had it not been Anna Camp, had it been somebody else, I don't think it may have been as good for me as I thought it was.
Did you have any reservations about her and the screen time before, or were you okay with it? Did you see it as a huge problem, or do you see it more as like a Roman Mrs. Loomis?
I do see it as a Roman. I know they had similar screen times. Think for some reason it felt like Roman was on the screen more. I don't know if it was just the fact that the movie was maybe longer, or he was maybe not in it such. I don't know, but I do feel that it could have benefited for her being on there maybe a little bit more. Like maybe one more scene. I think they intentionally now because people look for the killer, and they basically look at everybody that's in the film the entire time. I think they intentionally didn't want her to be, around so much. But I think, or maybe one more scene with Sydney could have probably helped a little bit.
Well, so what did you think of the final fight?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I think her snarky little comments, that Anna gave Sydney and Sydney kind of responded back. Having Tatum in the fight with her, kind of brought back Scream 2, with her and Gail, with the guns. It just kind of gave me that kind of feeling again. But yeah, the physical, I'm glad it was kind of physical. They didn't kind of make it seem like she was weak or by any means.
Were you surprised by the fact that Ethan Embry was the killer and the fact that Gail killed a ghost face halfway through and where one was unmasked and kind of taken out of the plot? Did those things surprise you?
Yes, I think I enjoyed the fact that, Gale killed a killer finally, and it was in the middle of the movie, and he was unmasked. Kind of, he kind of puts you in a position where you feel like, okay, well, that's I guess it's one of those things where it hadn't happened before, so it was kind of one of those things where I did enjoy that. As far as Ethan Embry, I was not really surprised. I feel like when they did meet him at the psych ward, I think before knowing what the ending was gonna be, I thought maybe he was helping Stu, in some
Ah,
way, yeah.
what do you think of Stu?
I mean, Matthew, he was hilarious. I mean, I know a lot of people didn't like the whole AI feature, but I think him as an actor, he played Stu, 30 years later, just like he did in the first one. I thought he's hilarious. The way he was kind of taunting Gail and Sydney via the phone. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think, I already knew it wasn't going to be him just because I think they gave a lot away in the trailer as far as trying to make you think it was him. But I enjoyed Matthew Lillard a lot.
What about the other killers in the montage at the end? Was that what you were expecting? Are you happy with it? What are your thoughts?
I didn't expect it to be on the screens. I kinda thought initially going in that they were gonna be I thought every time she got a call, it was gonna be a different person from her past and that she was gonna have to but I think that would have given the whole AI thing away. I did love the montage, but I do wish, like so many people, that Jill was on there.
Hey, listen, here's the glass is half full of this. We didn't see Jill this time. That doesn't mean we can't see her in Scream
Right.
8. And like, let's just say Scream 8 is Tatum focused. I mean, what if Jill would appear to Tatum or her cousin? That's something different. And let's just say Kirby's in Scream 8, there could be a play there. So, I mean,
Right.
I agree with you. She should have been there. I would have loved to
Mhm.
have seen the Scream 4 representation. Well, let's move over now to Sydney's family because that's kind of
Okay.
what I wanted to talk to you about. In addition to Tatum and Mark, I want to ask you about the potential of like her other daughters.
Mhm.
What did you think of Tatum as Sydney's daughter?
I liked her way more than I thought it was gonna be, than I
Yeah.
thought I was going to, yeah, I did enjoy it. I thought that I thought she did a phenomenal job, overall, before seeing her, I didn't know if the movies could, if she could carry a movie, maybe the next one, her be the lead, but, after seeing her in 7, I could see a Tatum-focused film.
Awesome. Well, that's great. She really earns it. I don't feel like Tatum intrudes on Sydney's space, but she's developed so well on her own. What did you think of Mark Evans?
I went in not I did not know if I was gonna enjoy him, because I was already in the with Patrick Dempsey already. We already kinda were under the impression it was gonna be that Mark. Also, I don't know, 'cause I watch House of Villains, so I see him as the host of that show, comedian, talk soup, from a long time ago. But I think right away from when they had their conversation in the bed, him and Sydney together, right away, I liked him a lot. And then I thought he was dead when they stabbed him, and I was wanting more, so I'm glad that he obviously did make it through. So I do hope to see him, maybe more in the future, I don't know.
Cool. Well, no, I agree. I'm glad that he worked for you because, like, actually, the Patrick Dempsey stuff. I enjoyed Joel McHale. I'm happy with the direction. I saw the special features and like they've shown like the maps of the house, like the architecture and like how
Uh-huh.
they're constructing the sets. And actually, at the bottom, if you zoom in, it says Prescott dash Kincaid household or residence,
Oh,
and that
wow.
hurts. That was like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, like I'm happy with Evans and Mark and Joel McHale, but it's just like,
Right.
but anyways. So I want to ask you before we go to talk more about the family, what did you think of the twins?
Oh, I love the twins.
Yeah.
They were great. I love how they were able to kind of put them in this. I love the fact that they were working for Gail. I love the fact that they were able to incorporate them in this one. I know a lot of people have said that they didn't really feel like they came out a lot as far as look after the bar scene. But I do think it gives them a good way to come out in the future movies.
I forget how you felt about them in 5 and 6. What did you think of, like, Chad and Mindy here?
I know a lot. I've always liked them. I think Mindy felt more mature and grown compared to I think in 6, it was a little hokey how she was always, kinda like they try to make her like the Randy, and I know that was her uncle. I do think that they had growth in this movie. I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more. I enjoyed him so much more in this one. But like I said, I'm hoping that that does lead into them, maybe hopefully with Tatum in future films. So I hope they do keep him.
That's great. Me too. Like, to me, I feel like they're part of the family. Before we talk about Sydney's other daughters, I want to ask you, what is your new ranking of the Scream films?
I know. It was t I've pondered over and over it again. It's always still gonna be 1,
Mhm.
the top, so it's 1. I think the last time it was 1, 2, 3, 7, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
Cool. I
yeah.
love to hear it. I think you had 4 up higher.
I did, yeah, I've done multiple rewatches, and 3's really kinda started to grow on me a lot. Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
that's called? That's the Ryan Showers effect.
You think so? Yeah, I think so.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I love
Uh,
that 7 has placed so high in your ranking and it's there with Wes's films. That's really great to hear. Well, so Andrew, let's talk about Sydney's other daughters. So you brought up to me the fact that we only see these 2 little girls, Sydney's younger
mhm,
daughters, who we saw in the stroller, I guess. We see them just briefly on FaceTime. I feel like Kevin does this, they're with grandma
right,
and they're in Colorado, far away in terms of geography. What did
yeah.
you think of like their usage, and what are your questions about them going forward?
I think, obviously the last film runners kind of probably put them in a corner, as far as her having to have, because obviously she said she had daughters and they were small. And, in order to have Tatum, obviously they had to still have I guess rather than kinda, like, do the Halloween thing and just, go back and erase them, I think showing them on FaceTime and then having them away was good for the film. I just wonder how it's gonna work in the future. They can't depending on how much it's gonna be Tatum focused, I know that, but how are they gonna be addressed in the future without them being, at grandma's house, every time something happens? See, the only thing I can think of is obviously if it is a Tatum focused 8, her being off in college, they don't have to worry about him. I would assume that they'd probably mention the daughter if it does the franchise does grow, forever. Obviously, the daughters can become, future leads in the films if that's the way they go. But I think just right now, I don't know what they can do with them other than just not have them around.
I think you're right. 8, I think no problem. If Tatum
Right.
is in college, I don't expect them to be at home in Scream 8. So I think you'll
Right.
see Sydney and Mark away from home. In 9, this is where they're going to come back into play. Like, here's my thing. If they make a Scream 9 and they make it quickly, let's just say they
Mhm.
make it in the next 3 or 4 years,
Right.
those twins need to be in that movie. And I think that it would be such a cool opportunity and something so new for Scream, because Scream has never done the kid thing ever. And I think, like, just the idea of, like, how effective Halloween 4 is, with
Right.
having Jamie as, like, the little kid being stalked by Michael Myers. They could even just have them as part of the opening. Like, what if Sydney and Mark
Right.
are home with the girls and they get attacked and the girls are like, they have to crawl through a space or something? They should use them in some capacity while they're still little. I
Right.
don't know if they actually will, but I think that they should. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea. I just no, I think that the thing that would probably I would hope a future writer would wanna go there, because like you said, with the Halloween films and other, franchises weren't afraid to use kids. I think for some reason now there's a hesitation. I
Yeah.
think because, just maybe the world we're in, people don't wanna see kids get hurt. Doesn't mean they have to get hurt. I think that's a great idea. Them having, to be around in the house, even running away, hiding. I just for some reason, I feel like they're just not gonna go there. I don't know why.
Yeah. I see your point. And, like, so there was a rumor back, like, before
Mhm.
the events transpired to go from, like,
Right,
Melissa to Nev for Scream 7, where Scream 7 was gonna be a Christmas movie. So I think if let's just say Scream 9 is a Christmas movie, you can easily incorporate the kids and they
right.
belong there. If they don't, let's just say they keep the kids away for both 8 and 9. I think that is when you'll see them come and they'll get their
Right.
own movie down the road. And like, it's kind of interesting. So either way, it would be cool
Mm,
because you would kind of get to see Nev, assuming Sydney survives 8 and 9, that she
right.
could almost kind of be like the Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2018, where like where
Right.
she was really older. You could see that version of Sydney,
Right.
down the road for Scream 10 or something.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
I think so. I think it's gonna be I think just overall, just to imagine that this could be, one of the only franchises that they basically stays on one timeline would be interesting to see, because, obviously Halloween, we've had what, 3 different timelines they could go down. I'm hoping they don't go that route and try to like retcon a lot of stuff and just start over in a way. So I hope they don't go that route. I think it would be interesting, I'd like to see that we're down the road 3 films from now that the daughters are the future, whether Sydney's around anymore or not, or even if she is, later, maybe a grandmother and then having to deal with, maybe a grandson. That would be because I think that's one thing we don't see male anymore as like we used to back in the like 90s. So I think that would be interesting as well.
There you go. Imagine Sydney Prescott, and she has like all these different generations of kids with her. She's kind of like the older, like Jamie Lee
Right.
Curtis in the new movies, and then like she has Tatum, and she has the 2 little kids, and then she has Tatum's daughter. It's like a family lineage movie. That
I think that would be too.
love it. Well, and like here's I'm just gonna throw this out there. What if like down the road, the twins kind of grow up and we see them, and what if like I mean this is really far fetched, okay, but like say like one of them like let's just say they're both under attack and one of them is actually really truly under attack, but what if the other daughter is Ghostface? They could even do something really wacky like that. I would hope not. That would break Sydney's heart in a way that I just I think would be you couldn't come back from that, but just something to think about.
I think so. Yeah.
So, well, Andrew, I love it. I'm happy to hear your thoughts about these girls. And like,
Mm.
just talking to you now has just given me like an extra spring in my step because like, it's kind of
Um,
like, oh, we'll get 8, maybe 9, and then it's going to go away, but not, maybe not, and like the possibilities are endless with Scream. So,
I think so too. I think so too.
well, so Andrew, thank you so much for joining me. Please tell everybody where they can find you and any final thoughts you have.
I'm on Instagram, Drew Dominguez, Instagram. I've enjoyed talking to you again. I'm excited about Scream 8, kind of excited where they're going to go from here. Not to say that Scream 7 felt final, but if we were not to get another one, I feel like for Sydney's story, it did come full circle. But I am excited for Scream 8, where it's going to go. What will Sydney be part of that story? So I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Dear God, Ryan,